Hi everybody, this is Head Trader Patrick. I'm going to be doing a short video today answering a couple questions that are really, when you distill them down, it's the same question, and that is, why do your candles always look like they are trending so smoothly? The other variation I often get is for symbol XYZ, whatever symbol I have up on the screen, my chart doesn't look like that for that date range. What are you doing, or what are you doing differently? So I want to talk about that, and that is the difference is Heiken Ashi. Heiken Ashi is a different candle setting. You can use hollow candles, filled-in candles. You can use the bar format. I happen to use, for this system, the spread trading system, I use Heiken Ashi. And here's why I use it. Let's start with a little bit of background. There was a great book I read years and years ago. This probably came out early 2000s, called Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play by Mahan Khalsa and Randy Illig. Really good book. And in that book, it describes the system. First of all, it was designed for salespeople to help them when they're in a meeting trying to get a deal. Let's figure out quickly, sort of the spirit of the book, if the deal is going to happen, if we have a green light, if the deal's not going to happen, or red light, or if it's a yellow light. If we're not sure, let's move that deal to either a green light or a red light. And so the whole, again, the spirit behind this book and the philosophy is, you need, as a salesperson, you need to get to your decisions quickly. And it's not the red lights or the green lights that are trouble. It's the yellow lights. It's the decisions where the data isn't quite pointing in a clear direction. You don't know if the customer is interested in buying or not, and you can't figure that out. That book helps you figure that out. And so I took that concept to spread trading, and I use it in a few other places, in that we need to get to a decision point quickly on all this information that gets presented to us when we're scanning for stocks to enter. Every day I'm looking at 150, 200 different tickers scrolling through. I need to make 150, 250 quick decisions on every one of those tickers at least once a day and sometimes twice a day. This system, this Heiken Ashi system, helps me do that. It helps me get to decision points quicker. And again, the danger when you're trying to make these trades is these yellow lights, this indecision. So you're either forced into no decision, or you're forced into a decision that might be the wrong one at the wrong time. And again, Heiken Ashi helps me to make that probably most difficult decision, is when to trade. This whole system is based on entering trades on the dip, and you have to know when that dip is ending and the primary trend is resuming, and that's where this helps to answer that. And it literally turns these sort of candle patterns that look indecisive into green or red based on the trend change. And that's all we're interested in this spread system, really. When it's all boiled down to, what are we doing? We're making trade decisions based on a trend. Okay. So here are two side-by-side graphs, the same graph, the same ticker. This is SPY, and top left, that's a traditional candle system. There's a mix of red and green in there, a bunch of gaps in there. Looks like there's, this is uptrending, but there's sort of some mini trends embedded in that master trend. This is a weekly chart, by the way, and it just looks a bit messy. Moving to the bottom right, Heiken Ashi cleans that up, and it tells you candle by candle what part of the trend you're in. And of course, the most interesting part is when these candles transition from green to red, or red to green. That's when the trend is changing for us. And of course, you're going to get instances where you're only spending one candle in a counter trend, and that's natural. You're not going to get out of that anywhere in trading. You always have this whipsaw effect, but Heiken Ashi helps you identify when those whipsaws end and begin, rather than having a lot of uncertainty with a traditional candle system. Okay, so here's another example. This happens to be Realty Income. This is a great ticker for trading spreads, and you can see there's a lot of ups and downs here. There's maybe some difficulty in figuring out what the major trend is, where one ends. There's a lot of stops and starts here. It's a great example for where indecision is. If you look at almost every trend here, it's just so unclear when it begins and ends with traditional candles or without Heiken Ashi. In the next chart, you can see quite a bit more clearly when those end, and it's still not a great chart. This ticker is moving all over the place. It happens to be the 130-minute candle, but these trends are plentiful in this particular chart. And when you look at Heiken Ashi and you look at times when looking at the bottom indicator, when this turns red, that means we're now interested in the trade, and you coordinate that with the Heiken Ashi change, which happens right in here. Suddenly you're looking at a great, potentially great trade entry for this particular ticker. And here's another example where the indicators turned red down here, and Heiken Ashi also turned. Now this is an interesting one. Transition right here where you would have transitioned and then there's sort of a false upward move. They happen. It's part of the deal. And then still within the system you would have taken a little bit of a downturn, and then you would have been fine as this this uptrend did eventually continue within 5 or 6 candles. So anyway, that's the difference between traditional candles and Heiken Ashi, and how when coordinated with a trigger system, you suddenly have much more attractive entries and much more entries that are much more decisive. Okay, so the basics of Heiken Ashi, one of the basic differences is every Heiken Ashi candle starts in the middle of the previous candle. That's basically the difference. The current price is always reflected the same way as sort of the current line in either traditional or Heiken Ashi, but that's really the difference. Is each candle starts in the middle of the previous candle, and what this does, and highlighted here in color, is the candle colors in Heiken Ashi are the trend. So you don't need another indicator. You don't need 2 more moving averages to clutter up your chart. You can see pretty clearly when those trend changes occur and what trend you're currently in. Okay. Heiken Ashi is really good at giving you the short or medium length trend condition or trend changes. Long term, if you move it back out to the weekly, that will give you a longer term. So it does allow you to scale up or down. Okay. Pros and cons of Heiken Ashi system. There are limits to where I would use it. The cons first are it tends to give a less clear picture of what's happening minute to minute. Okay, if you're looking for a particular candle, especially if you're making if you're looking for a doji candle or some other candle, you would not use Heiken Ashi, because it would change the what the candle patterns are just by definition. So if you're a candle pattern trader, you're not going to want to use Heiken Ashi for those pattern entries. Okay. Gaps appear differently. Because every candle starts in the middle of the previous, there are no gaps in Heiken Ashi, and I think that's a good thing, because it helps you identify when, anytime you see a long candle, that means there's probably an underlying gap to that candle. But Heiken Ashi will remove gaps from your chart. It's not really for day trading. Again, day trading's a whole different animal. If you're looking for day trades, you probably didn't find me to get there. You're looking for something else. And the experts often say that these Heiken Ashi should not be used for anything under 10-minute candles. Okay. On the pros and the reasons why I use Heiken Ashi is they're great for spreads. They're great for knowing when that trend changes. Even if the trend changes only for a few days and then resumes or comes back to a indecisive trend, that's still useful as a spread trader. It accentuates the visual for trend changes, and that's again what I really want. And it gets us, back to one of those earlier slides, it gets us to that better green light, red light decision, and helps remove the yellow candles or the yellow lights from our trade decisions. So how I use it, again, as I showed earlier, I have an indicator telling me when I should be looking for trades, and I really look for a green candle after this trend. So Heiken Ashi giving us the red trend here, as indicated by this big blue outlined arrow. Most of the way through that downtrend, we see an oversold condition where now we are going to then look for a trend change. That trend change occurs on this yellow arrow right here, and then we're going to be entering on this following candle when it turns green. Okay, and that's basically how I use it. I identify the trend change, find the oversold indicator, and get poised for an entry. So that's it. That's how we use Heiken Ashi, and thanks for those questions. Keep them coming.